Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today I'm going to be talking about Boosh, Blackwing, Book 1 of the Ravensmark trilogy by Ed McDonald. So guys, this is the final book in the TBR swap that my friend Leanna over at Leanna's Library and I did back in July. And because Leanna reads 40 books a month and I read 4, I did not get them done until now in September. But I'd have to say that Blackwing is my absolute favorite of the bunch. I did not know what to expect going in this. I had not heard anybody talk about this other than one review over at Megan's Reading Revelations, which I'll link down below. It's an excellent review as well. I did not know what to expect from this book. And man, I read this so fast. It was so good. It was so good, and I love being surprised like that. Like, I loved Mistborn and The Well of Ascension, but I knew that I was going to love those books because of all of the talk and the hype that they had. Blackwing did not have any of that. And, oh, man, just that feeling when you find a book, just like a hidden cache of jewels and dragon's hoard of treasure hidden behind, you know, a mimic that looks like a treasure box, and you try to open it up and it eats that guy's hand, but, you know, you hired him, so that's fine. Hirelings, you know, you don't even give them names in the dungeon. But yeah, that's what Blackwing is. So, without wasting any more time,
Let's get down to business.
let me tell you all about Blackwing and why you should read it. So the premise of this book is there is a captain in this order called the Blackwing named Ryholt Galhara, which is a freaking cool name. And this is written in first person, and right away, almost immediately, within the first chapter, I got the vibes. This book has the vibes of so many other things that I really, really enjoy, and a few of them came at the very beginning, and then some of them came slightly later. But it ended up being this book that feels like, and I'll discuss each of these as they come, but it feels like a combination of, it's like you're making yourself one of those smoothies. You're like, I'm gonna take some of this and some of this, and glug, 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 and there it is. It feels like The Gunslinger meets The Black Company meets Lovecraft meets BioShock Infinite meets Borderlands.
Come on, everybody, check me out. I'm dancing.
Meets The Dresden Files. And it's as if you mixed all those things up together, and what is the result is just fantastic. And this was not actually originally on my quest for the best of Flintlock fantasy and adjacent subgenres. But it is now. Because the aesthetic of this, it's a post-apocalyptic world where there have been, in the past, these wars, I guess 70 years ago, there was a continuation of this war between these godlike beings called the Nameless and these other godlike beings called the Deep Kings. And the Deep Kings, I guess, were at the bottom of the ocean at some point, and then they came up and tried to conquer stuff. And there's like, I guess 7 of them and 7 of the Nameless. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure the numbers are correct. And there's this big old war, and one of the Nameless, one of the 2 Nameless that's still around. The other 5 are either dead or missing. His name is Crowfoot, and he unleashed this weapon called the Heart of the Void. It's just this big nuke that literally broke the sky. It completely obliterated 2 cities. The sky now has huge, like, rents in it that just leak out this kind of like bronze light, and it just like made this really magic wasteland in between all these cities. And this magic wasteland is called the Misery, and in the Misery, magic kind of leaks into you, and it creates all these weird creatures, like these things called, I think, Gillens or something like that. But they're these little like red people who only know like 7 phrases that they heard like as the nukes went off, and they can only repeat those things. It's like, oh, good to see you, governor. Oh, you better be careful out in the wasteland. It's dangerous. And they just repeat the same thing over and over again. But they have like anesthetic fangs. And so while you're sleeping, they eat you. And you don't know because you can't feel it because you're numb. And so there's this Misery, and this other nameless one named Null invented this huge engine, and the heart of this engine is underneath the main city of Valengrad, and this engine is the only thing that keeps the Deep Kings and their kind of minions called the Drudge, which are just, I mean, there's different kinds of Drudge. They just kind of get warped as they're taken over by the Deep Kings, like the Misery, and they were humans, and then they're not anymore. They're these weird monster things. Very Lovecraftian, this whole, all these creatures. But the thing it just like obliterates everything within ranges of all these way stations. But it all comes out of the main city. And so Null's engine is the only thing keeping the Deep Ones at bay. But Null has vanished, and a lot of the way stations are in disrepair. And there are rumors that the Deep Kings are going to make they're kind of feeling out to see if Null's engine still works. And if so, they're going to make a play on the Range, which is the stuff right outside the Misery. And so with all that as a backdrop, our hero, Ryholt Galharrow, is a servant of Crowfoot, the Blackwing. And he has this tattoo of a crow on his arm, and like anytime Crowfoot needs to talk to him, the crow comes out of his arm. Blood everywhere. It just like pulls his skin off, and this bloody crow hops around and says, "Go, you need to do this!" And so at the very beginning, he is given the order to go rescue this noble woman from this one range station, and that is where it begins. We know that Galharrow was once a member of the military under Marshal Venzer, who's like the top military guy, but he left in kind of disgrace. We don't know why. McDonald does actually a really good job delivering little pieces, little packets of information about Galharrow's past, to where it's a continuing mystery throughout the whole book. And it's just so bizarre. This whole aesthetic with this just big machine that keeps everything back, I love. And the fact that there's this wasteland, that's the Borderlands thing. They leave, the Blackwings, they hunt down sympathizers, people who are working for the Deep Kings from within inside these range cities. They're kind of like a cross between like mercenaries and, the U.S. Marshals, where they go and hunt people down. But they do it like for coin or for the Nameless. So he takes odd jobs as kind of like a bounty hunter, but then when Crowfoot makes him do stuff, he has to go and do it, or Crowfoot will just wreck him. The writing style is very, it moves along very quick. It's a pretty fast-paced novel. It just reads really fast-paced, even though there's not always a ton of action going on. Galharrow is very, he's kind of depressed. He's kind of a drag. Kind of one of those fallen paragons that still has some of that morality and chivalry left, but at the same time is just kind of depressed. And just him walking along across the wasteland and the Misery to who knows where he's going and what he's going to find. That reminds me of The Gunslinger. The whole mystery element and him being involved in this kind of paranormal investigation reminds me a lot of frickin' Dresden. And so once he rescues this noble woman, he finds himself drawn into this big, huge mystery concerning the machine, concerning the Nameless, concerning the Deep Kings, concerning conspiracy. Are there people inside the Range that are working to let the Deep Kings in? Where did the Nameless go? Are they dead? Does Null's machine work? All of this, there's this huge mystery, so it feels kind of like a noir, a post-apocalyptic noir tale. And I think McDonald does a really great job of giving you just enough information to make a guess or carry you to the next kind of investigation point. If this was a point-and-click adventure game where you look around for more clues, and enough red herrings to kind of send you off the trail, all the while being like, I don't know. But he does give you enough information to figure it out if you are astute. I did not solve the mystery, but after the mystery was revealed, there was enough information to have gathered it for people who are better than I am about gathering that kind of stuff. Some of the creatures of the Deep Kings, like the Deep King minions that they find, are these things called brides, which are these really thin, young, really attractive women who recruit people using their kind of sexy time skills. And the more people they recruit into their weird sexy time cult, the bigger and more kind of fertile and girthy the brides become, and to where they're as big as a room, and there's just a bunch of naked people hanging around being like, ooh, sexy time. And the bride is emitting these huge like blasts of pheromones that like make your brain all sexy time and you do what they say. But even more terrifying are the darlings. And McDonald does a great job building these up. Gal Harrow is very afraid of there being darlings long before there are darlings. These darlings are these like really powerful evil sorcerers that are in the bodies of children. And so there's these children like running down, toddling around, and then they just turn and unleash this dark magic that just like cuts swaths of enemies in half. Oh my gosh. And they burrow mind worms into your head, so it's where you have to obey them, and they'll turn around and you'll start killing their allies and stuff. The darlings are absolutely terrifying. It's so creepy. Creepy children are so creepy. So aside from the mystery, the plot revolves around Gal Harrow's relationship with this noblewoman that he rescues. Her name is Elizabeth Tanza, and he recognizes her from his life 20 years ago, and that's where we get glimpses and pieces of it. And there's some other really good characters around them, like Nen, like the female sellsword, who's just like tough as nails and will just go into like a berserk Tasmanian devil rage, but she doesn't have a nose. She's got like a wooden nose. And she hates nobles, so she's constantly mad at Gal Harrow for following this lady around. But Tanza is a spinner, and that's what the wizards, not the wizards, but the talented, the casters that aren't like the wizard, like the nameless are these great powerful wizards who are almost akin to gods, and the deep kings, we don't even know what they are, but they're almost akin to gods. But then you have the sorcerers, which are the spinners, and this is a really cool magic system. It uses light, and it's called Phos or Phos, whatever, Phos. And there are 3 moons. There's there's a blue, red, and golden moon, and they all have different waxing and waning periods. And I guess there's no sun anymore. I didn't even think about that. But they sit at these looms, and they're pulling like the prismatic threads from the moonlight, and they're storing them in these batteries that then power all the range cities that funnel down into the heart of Valengrad, which powers Null's engine. And they absorb some of it into themselves that they then unleash as this kind of light magic, and they keep spare batteries that I can either throw it as a grenade or absorb the light and keep using it. And it's really cool because they sit there and they spin the light, but it's dangerous because they're just staring into this light. So some of them go blind, some of them go insane. The light can like cut their fingers off. When they first get their awakening of their magic, any awakened talent is forced to go to the loom mills because the range needs that Phos to protect from the Drudge and the Deep Kings. And so when there's this first awakening, it's usually this big like burst of fire that can wound them or like maim part of them or burn their eyebrows off or lose a foot or something like that. So it's this very dangerous magic. McDonald does a really good job of setting limits on what the magic can do because it is very costly to use. If you're gonna surge a whole lot of light magic outwards, he gets into scientific theory, like fantasy scientific theory, where there's physical theorems named after some of the namelesses talking about how light reflects and then it feeds back on itself, or there's a backlash. So if you use a really powerful burst of energy, you can end up like channeling it. The backlash can like burn to dust the people near you. And so all of this just conspires together. It just works really well as a very fast-paced, exciting mystery novel with a fantastic aesthetic, a cool world, cool creatures, fun characters. No, they're not the most in-depth, but for a book like this, there is enough about them to make them different. First of all, there ain't no attractive people in this book. So he eschews the beautiful heroes and heroines. Most people are not. They are all damaged or maimed or wounded or haggard, or they're ugly in some way. They are all just like, they are not the stereotypical picture of what a fantasy, beautiful man or woman look like. No, it is a very ugly world. It's a very brutal world. I don't think it's grimdark. I think Gal Harrow has too much heart for it to be grimdark. One of my things that keeps it from immediately being a like all-time favorite is the fact that it's kind of hard to root for a lot of these characters because they are just so like, they're just so Mad Max. They're so post-apocalyptic. It's just, like, I just don't... Everyone's a drag. You hear me say that all the time. Everyone's a drag. And I like Gal Harrow, and I like Tanza, and I like her brother, who's just out of his element. I was rooting for them because their side was the side of the right thing to do. Not because I really wanted them specifically to win. I wanted their side to win, but not them specifically. But I am eager to keep reading and see where it goes. I mean, in this post-apocalyptic world, we get to see how, the wealthy and the powerful, how even in a world like this where literally their lives are in danger, they're in danger of being killed by the Deep Kings and the Drudge at any minute, the elite, they still hoard their crap. They give just enough to make sure that the range and everything else has enough people, equipment, FOSS to survive, but not a brass farthing more, because then you know what? You wouldn't have your dragon horde to sit upon. So we have to deal with that. I guess the end of the world doesn't change a dang thing. And MacDonald also plays a lot with talking about, like, he just uses summer a lot to kind of represent youth or these naive times when you were either, like, actually young or just didn't know how things worked, and how life scars us, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, and the masks that we wear to kind of cover up the hurt or the mistakes of the past, to project this self that we want others to see, because in this world it does not behoove you to be vulnerable and show your true face. So everyone is kind of, even Gal Harrow who's trying to dig through the masks, trying to sift through the deception, is engaged in deception of his own. MacDonald does an excellent job showing the high cost of battle. Battles are not won with no cost at all. I was just talking about that with the John Gwynne crew, about how John Gwynne does a really good job in showing that people die in battle. And that happens here as well. MacDonald does not shy away from showing how brutal battle can be, and the amount of life lost and devastation wreaked. The Nameless and the Deep Kings, MacDonald does such a cool job of keeping these guys mysterious. They feel a lot like the 10 who were taken from the Black Company, but cooler, because we get a little more of them, but not so much that we know everything about them. We just get a little bit to where we can see enough of how freaking cool they are, how kind of alien they are. It feels a lot like Lovecraft's original intention for the Great Old Ones. They were neither good nor evil. It was Derleth later who made it a battle of good and evil. They were just otherworldly. They are cosmic horrors that our minds can't understand, because their minds are just so beyond anything we could comprehend. And that's kind of like where the Nameless and the Deep Kings are. Their scheming is just so far removed from what we can understand that we also feel lost, just like Gal Harrow and Tanza, when it comes to these beings of just this immense, unknowable power. As far as criticisms for this book, there is a lot of swearing. There are too many F-bombs for what I enjoy in my book, and at parts it is a bit excessive. And there are a couple sections of, like, locker room humor, or, where it's just like, you're gay, no, you're gay, but, like, way worse than that, where it's just like, really? Like, in the post-apocalyptic, this is how people are gonna talk, like my high schoolers? There's some of that. Luckily, that's not, there's way more swearing than those parts. I mean, but that's not the whole book. There's just a couple dumb stuff where I don't really know why the, like, I slept with your mom stuff persists. I guess. So I didn't really love that, but other than that, I really, really enjoyed this book. The plot and the world and the magic and the creatures and the mystery, it was so good. I loved this book. On the Kingpin approval system, I give this book I'm going to give this book a superb minus. So that there's places for it to go. But superb minus, I just devoured this book. Out of 5 stars, of course, boosh. 5 stars, the strumpet is back, baby. 5 stars. I wanted to reserve the rest of this year for finishing series. I am probably going to really try to finish up the Raven's Mark before the end of the year as well. It's just so good. You should definitely go and read Blackwing if any of this stuff sounded cool to you. So guys, that is it for me today. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys.